Hello, episode 14 of the Two Russells Podcast. And I've got Russell back with me, interestingly, on the day that eMove has been announced that it's back in the market. So what do you think about that then, Russell?
I know, yeah, I saw that in the trades this morning. Do you know what? At first, I had this kind of pang of, I suppose, a bit of bitterness, if I'm honest, and a bit of regret, because, of course, it was my baby. I founded the thing, and obviously it fell by the wayside, quite famously, I suppose, in 2018. But then, literally a second later, I thought, no, do you know what? Good on Griffin, and good on the fact that that brand, as it was built over many, many years, over the 8 or 9 years that it's prevailed for, is still seen as a valuable thing, whereby, first of all, Mashroom bought it. Obviously, they didn't do with it what they intended to. But now Griffin have bought it, and they've actually changed their name. Bear in mind, Griffin have been around for 24 years. And Griffin have decided to completely rebrand their business to eMove, thinking that the eMove brand is more powerful. And I think, and this is just a little selfish plug, which we don't do very often, testimony to the fact that PR actually really grew that business as a brand, the eMove business, which is why proper PR now exists, thanks to kind of the work that James Lockett and I did back in the early days. So it gave me actually a cause for a bit of celebration, I suppose, that it carries on, even though it's without me.
And brands changing hands and brands evolving, or companies selling or being acquired, is the subject of our conversation today. So I'll let you do the introductions to our guest, Russell. So over to you.
Yes, so this is the indefatigable Lucy Noonan.
You and your words.
From, I know I love a big word, from Atomic Consultancy. Welcome, Lucy.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, Lucy.
She's looking a bit nervous, isn't she?
Not
I don't know what you're going to ask me.
Never.
And that's the thing, you don't know what we're going to ask you. We always kind of set a boundary or two, like where can't we go? But we don't give the questions in advance, and we like this just to be very, very natural. We want to talk about, as we're about to, the individual that we're talking to. We're going to talk about their business and their journey and successes, but also about them as an individual. That's really, really important. We are, by the way, going to come to a point in this interview, probably in about 20 minutes' time, where we talk about something that happened to you in your career, which I would just go on the record as saying right now, before we even get there, is utterly outrageous. I'll leave it right there. That's now going to keep you watching, or at least you're now probably going to spin forward.
Fast forward for 20 minutes,
But Lucy's experience of something in her career that and I'm sure everybody watching this will think is absolutely outrageous and unforgivable. We're going to talk about what that was, and indeed how Lucy, who actually I know as a very robust, very stand-up, kind of broad-shouldered, metaphorically speaking, individual, how it may have affected even someone like you, Lucy. So do you want to tell us first of all about you? Let's start with Atomic, shall we? Atomic Consultancy. What is it? What the hell is Atomic Consultancy, for goodness sake?
So we launched in October 21, so it's just been going just over 2.5 years. Initially, I set out to project manage acquisitions on behalf of buyers looking to grow. And then quickly moved into the brokering space. So we basically support sellers looking to exit, and we also project manage buyers looking to acquire.
And specifically in the property sector?
We only sell lettings and estate agency businesses. Yeah, we've done one financial services business, but we specialise specifically in lettings and estate agency. That's it.
Okay, and how's the business grown over the last 3 years? Where are you now? So initially, presumably it's just you, literally just you and a laptop, I'm imagining.
In my bedroom, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And talk us through the journey to where you are now in terms of size. So if you can, transactions, revenue, staff numbers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I initially set out to do 12 acquisitions a year. So one a month was what my plan was. I had a coach and a mentor, and the first time I sat down with my coach, she ripped my business plan in half and basically said, are we allowed to swear or not allowed to swear?
Yes.
It's shit. So I was like, brilliant.
That's a low-level swear.
Yeah.
So hang on, when you say ripped it in half, she didn't say, no, you're aiming too high, it should be 6, not 12.
She literally said, I think you're aiming too low, and I think there's a lot that you can do, and I think you're pigeon. I was like, I'm just going to project manage for buyers, because that was something that I'd done previously, working for an equity funder and for LSL at corporate level. So that was very much my comfort zone. And she was like, you've got a huge opportunity here to broker deals. So so I set out to do 12. We've now completed on 89 in 21 months.
Incredible. Wow.
And we're just under 30 million in transactions.
So hang on, let's work out what that is then as a percentage of what you thought you were going to do. So you thought you were going to do 24 deals in that 2-year period.
Yeah, well, 30 by this point, yeah.
30.
So 4x that at least.
And I've tripled pretty much what I'd anticipated.
So your coach / mentor
was right,
but actually even they underclubbed it.
Yeah.
Compared to where you ended up. So what do you put that down to? Why have you been so successful in that short period of time?
I think,
blow your own trumpet for a bit, go on.
Yeah, no, I think there was a space in the market, I think, for competition. There hadn't been another broker that had come onto the scene for a long period of time. But I think the team and myself, because we were buyers previously before we became brokers, and we have both been estate agents and letting agents, well, the whole team has at one point, I think we've been able to be a lot more approachable. We see the personal side of things. And I also think genuinely people have just got behind me. I think we have a lot of bad press about estate agency and how bad we can, be. But actually I've seen a completely different side to that. And people have all just gone, do you know what? Lucy's really working hard here and she's trying to do something slightly different. And the amount of people that have, recommended us and got behind us has been incredible. But we have worked incredibly hard. Like I'm doing, I've put 2.5 stone on in 2.5 years. Because I'm literally sat there.
I have to do some more dancing.
I know, I need to. But yeah, so that's something I need to start working on, is start a bit more better work-life balance, which I'm trying with obviously things like bringing Olivia to meetings with me so I can then spend some quality time with my daughter. But yeah, I think the hardest thing I've found actually is the success, which sounds really big-headed and I don't mean it that way, but I never set out to have a company, and there's 4 of us now. We're looking to recruit again. We've just hopefully we'll complete on our first multi-million-pound deal at the end of September.
Well, can you tell us who that is?
No, I can ask.
Nice try.
You can always ask.
Nice
Everyone
try.
does.
Nice try.
So yeah, we kind of set out, and our average deal size was probably about 250 to 380 sale price. Our average deal sale price now is 875. So we're definitely moving into that.
So you've gone from maybe 1 or 2 branch deals to now multi-branch deals.
Yeah. So obviously there's a bigger risk involved with that. So the values are higher, but there's a much more risk of things getting found out in due diligence or finance issues. You're obviously then dealing with a lot more savvy buyers, I'd say, sometimes. So there's a lot more work. They take longer. Yeah, this transaction.
Market influences.
Yeah,
renegotiations.
Yeah, so we've got one deal at the moment that I think we've renegotiated 3 times. So there's a lot going on. Sorry, that's my phone. Can you hear that?
No, carry on.
I don't know whether you should answer it, baby, because it could be a deal.
It could be a deal.
It could be a deal. But yeah, so it is really, really exciting. But I think if you'd have asked me back in the beginning of 2021 when I wanted to launch, if you'd have said to me, what do you think where you'll be in 3 years? I'd have never in a million years thought that I'd be sat like here and doing the deals that I'm doing. It just blows my mind sometimes.
Well, while we're talking about deals, and before we go back to their history, the question that I get asked more and more by estate agents is, what is my business worth? So what are the general rules of thumb? I know it's worth what someone will pay for it, but what are the general rules at the moment? Is it a myth that estate agents are worth nothing? It's only the lettings book that's worth it? What are businesses worth?
Yeah, so lettings is key. Lettings is your gold nugget, basically, and that's just because it's the guaranteed residual income that you get from lettings, from your management and your rent collect. So what you see every month coming in, if you've got 30 grand coming in every single month, that is sustainable income that funders like and buyers like. What they don't like is the estate agency fluctuations that we have. So, 21 we spiked, then we've gone down. Estate agency is very open up to the economic climate. And that's why a lot of businesses won't acquire estate agency. So I'd love to sit here, because it would make my job a lot easier, and say estate agency is worth something. But unless you've got 4 to 6 branches and your market leader at least one or first or second, there isn't a huge amount of brand value. The value in estate agency really is just your SSTC pipeline and your instruction register at the minute. Once you get to businesses that are turning over 1.5 to 2 million consistently every year in estate agency, there can be a value to that. And I always get asked multipliers, and it genuinely does it's about supply and demand. Yeah. So, in Carlisle, there's only sheep in Carlisle. I've found. So, you know, the multiples there can be, you know, 1.4 to 1.5. But in London, you know, we've just brokered one in Westminster, and I think that went at 2.4 times.
Of the managed book?
Of the managed consult. So, yeah, so I think what sellers need to see is it's not a standard blanket multiplier on your overall turnover. And I think when you go to an accountant, they'll do that. They'll just put a blanket multiplier on your business, but
there's too many variables.
Buyers won't. So let only is a different multiplier. It can be 0.5 one time, sometimes in London, sometimes 1.5 if they've got a renewal clause in there. So it's, you know, again, it depends, you know, we were just talking before, in Nottingham, there's a huge amount of appetite for people to acquire in Nottingham. So the multipliers are higher, so the values are higher. But again, you know, in Carlisle, in Wales, in Scotland, they are different. Yeah. So it is understanding kind of your market and who your potential buyers are going to be and what they're kind of.
But if you're an estate agent today looking at an exit strategy, get lettings.
Absolutely. And if you've got a lot of, don't make it complicated, is what I'd say. So we see quite a lot of businesses that have got a really healthy lettings business, but a lot of it is on ancillary income, let only. So at least move your let only into a rent collect, because then that's residual income, and it'll be a much higher multiplier.
So that's where we are today. Let's go back to that first job back at Hunters and your journey.
Yeah. Oh, God. So, I started a week after my 16th birthday. I used to do cricket teas for the Hollingrakes, who were the original founders of Hunters and
You'll now be interviewing on your talk team.
Kevin Hollingrak, I think he retained his seat as an MP.
He did.
I think he was going to throw his hat in the ring as leader, I think. But okay, Kevin Hollingrak, yes. Very successful man and a nice guy. I've met him once.
Yeah.
Seemed to be a very nice guy from what
I no, he's always been there. He's when I launched as well, he was there on the phone and stuff. So I do keep in touch with him. So, started off in their little Easingwold branch, which is just a small village outside of York, where I'm from. And then I went to uni. And then obviously had 6 hours of contact a week at uni. So whilst you said it was your biggest regret not doing a degree, it definitely, I don't think I enjoyed my time at uni because I hardly did anything. And then...
Is that reflected in the result that you got?
No, I still got a 2-1, but it was... And also I was quite lucky because
imagine if you'd worked a little bit harder.
I know, I didn't really apply myself. I think I ended up I was working 30 hours a week. So I used to work at Hunters, and then I used to go and work in a nightclub. Glynis Frew actually found me asleep underneath her desk once on a Sunday morning.
7 in the morning?
Yeah. No. At 11, whilst the office was open, me and 2 of the other negotiators, we used to take it in turn, Hunters, to go to sleep underneath the desk so that the others would answer the phone because we'd been up all night and literally partied, gone home for a quick shower and then into the office. No, I know. So, but no, it's a great opportunity. And then Hunters opened their first flagship office outside of York in Manchester. And then at the ripe old age of 19, Kevin gave me a mini and said, do you want to go and work in Hunters in Manchester and show
I went
them?
To that
yeah. And that was just, I was like, I felt like I'd hit the jackpot. Like it was just, we were right next door to Harvey Nicks. There was stuff going on like I'd just never been exposed to.
Nightclubs.
Yeah. More nightclubs, more boys.
Bigger desks to sleep under.
Was that the time you were doing the work with Viva Estates in Spain as well? So the Spanish property. That's why I went to see them.
Yeah, there was. I remember one day the baseball player came in and just handed me his dog and said, I can't go into Harvey Nicks. Can you hold this dog? And I was just like, well, okay. It was brilliant. And then much to my mum and dad's disgust, I did get a 2-1, but I actually dropped out in my last semester. And then went and did my exams about a year later because I got onto the MDP programme at Countrywide. So I don't know if you
explain what MDP is.
Their management development programme.
Right.
So back in the day, I don't know if you will remember, but Countrywide by far had the best training in the industry.
7 steps and
oh my God, yeah. And you pick your NPO, your negotiators personal organiser, and it was Ian Preston that was the area manager at Countrywide at the time. And it was like an X Factor kind of experience. There was 100 people that were invited to this like day event, and then literally halfway through the day, we got split. And it was kind of one room got told you're not successful. And then, the other 50 were successful. And I think I had 3 face-to-face interviews. They made it like you'd won the lottery. And I think my salary was £9,000 and then it was all commission based.
Yeah.
But I genuinely remember thinking, I've made it. This is exactly what I want to do. I love it.
I'm on the fast track. I'm on the journey.
And you had to book 10 viewings a day, 2 FS appointments. You had to book 2 valuation appointments every single day, 3 offers. I had a red box on my desk. It was the training that I got from doing that training with Countrywide was incredible.
And tell us what the culture was like. So the training's obviously super important. Countrywide definitely used to be known for that. I think much less so now, even though they're now part of Connells, obviously, who are not a bad firm, it has to be said.
Yeah.
What was the culture like?
Big training investment there.
But what was culture like as well as the training? So was the performance of the business also propelled by a really good culture within it as well as the training?
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky. I think the branch and the regional managers that I had at the time, we were all kind of a similar age. We were all really hungry to work, and we were all money orientated.
No more sleeping under the desk?
No, we literally, we used to get in the office, we had to be there for 8 a.m. and then we'd be out and at 7 o'clock at night, and then we'd back in at 8 a.m. doing our work. So we worked hard and we played hard. I mean, good God, I couldn't do it now. But, you could see that the amount of commission that you could earn. So at 21, I bought my first house. I was savings, and I bought a house with a friend that worked at Countrywide. Brilliant. So we were a really close-knit team. So like Sarah Jane Taylor, SJT, she was part of that group, MDP, so she's still in the industry. So there was quite a few of us actually that came from that kind of process. And then I then went to work for an independent agent called Smiles All Round.
What?
Yeah.
Smiles All Round. Are you sure it was an estate agency?
It was, yeah.
It sounds like a massage parlour.
It was. And the most embarrassing thing was I was on the back of the number 6 bus in York with the thumbs up. The thumbs up.
A picture or
give us that
No, it was a picture with me, Smiles All Round. And the number 6 bus is goes through the roughest part of York. So yeah, that was a highlight of my career. But again, I learned a lot then, because I went to be the lettings manager. So at that point, I'd never done lettings. Okay. It was all sales. So then I went and did lettings.
And if someone Googles Lucy Noonan Smiles All Round bus, does that picture pop up on Google?
It probably does, yeah. It was really embarrassing. Someone from a conference came up to me and said, "You're the girl on the back of the bus." I was like, that was 20 odd years ago, but yeah, I still remembered.
Still remember it.
It was, it wasn't. But I was known. And then I went to various different agencies. So working in an independent was really good for me, because I'd come from very much, learning from from Countrywide. I sometimes found it difficult that there wasn't that kind of culture that you've intimated, because that's what I was used to.
And the flexibility that goes, and the agility, I guess, that goes with independence. Right?
Yeah. And so, so then I went into Belvoir. Mm-hmm. So that was interesting, because I'd just moved to the Midlands. We'd really struggled to conceive with Olivia. And so I think we thought, sod it. My husband had got approached to go back to the company that he'd worked for in Nottingham. And my sister-in-law.
Is he in property or outside the
industry? No, I learnt my lesson early on that, not to date people in the industry. He's a civil engineer. So my sister-in-law had got pregnant, so we just thought, do you know what, let's just go and move to Nottingham and be cool aunts and uncles, and kind of gave up on becoming parents, really. And then I got an interview at Belvoir, thought it was for a business development management role, and I got offered the operations director's job. I was 30. And my job was to launch a state agency as a product offering across the Belvoir group. So phenomenal opportunity. And
under the Belvoir brand?
Yeah, the Belvoir brand, yeah. So working with Dorian and all the team there. And everything from changing the franchise agreement through to training, through to setting up all the sales, all the contracts that were needed. And it was interesting, because Dorian said to me on the first day that I worked there, he said, it'll take you 6 months to learn franchising. And I was like this arrogant prick at 30 and was like, I've read a franchising book. I've totally got this.
I've got that.
I was so wrong. I remember going into a franchise regional meeting, and one of the franchisees threw a pen across the room at me and stood up and walked out, because I came in very corporate and was, this is how you've got to do it, and you've got to respect that the franchise, this is their own business. Yeah. This is their own business.
How do you feel about
and actually,
doing
I'm here to support them to grow their business. I'm not here to tell them and dictate.
So you learned that lesson very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah. And it was a great lesson to learn. And I think that's also what's helped me now with acquisitions, is I'm here to help to support them to exit their business, but it's their business. Yeah. What they do with it and how they've managed it, that's what they've done. It was really interesting. And then I was there 9 months, and then I fell pregnant. Didn't know I was pregnant. And then 16 weeks whilst I was pregnant with Olivia, I had to just go for another routine scan, and then my whole world changed in 24 hours, and that was it. I was bedridden for 20 weeks.
Really?
Had to have surgery, and so my life kind of changed. But because I desperately wanted Olivia, it was kind of like that was my priority.
Well, you put her first.
I did, yeah.
So can you tell us what you were diagnosed with? What was the problem?
My grandma passed away of cervical cancer, and my mum had cervical cancer. So I was at high risk of that, and I'd had quite a few procedures in my early 20s. So my cervix basically was quite weak. So when they went to measure your cervix is supposed to be, I can't remember now, I think it's supposed to be at least 4 millimeters, and mine was like 0.4. So I basically had a very high risk of going to preterm birth. So I'd literally left my laptop, mobile, everything in the office at Grantham, and was just going to the QMC and coming back. And I ended up telling my husband, don't bother coming, it'll be fine, to having to ring my husband saying, I've got to go in and have a stitch put in. And then that night I lost loads of blood, and they said it was 50-50 chance whether, we didn't know she was a girl at this point, but if it would survive. And the only sonographer available that weekend was in the termination unit. So I then had to be wheeled down on the Saturday morning
into that unit
with everybody that was obviously going through a very difficult time themselves, but for me, and wait to hear that heartbeat. So it was horrible. And then they basically said, because we don't know whether the suture has worked, because I'd lost so much blood, I basically had to be bedridden. And I think mentally, that if you think 20 weeks, I had to do that. So I'd just moved to Nottingham, so I had no friends really around there because I was travelling to Grantham. So I couldn't join an NCT class, I couldn't do anything, I couldn't even lift a kettle, I couldn't have a shower.
And your husband, presumably that 20 weeks, I mean, I'm sure he took as much time off as he could, but he's got to work.
Yeah,
right?
So I was literally left on a morning with 3 different flasks and sandwiches and stuff, and I used just literally,
so you literally couldn't get out of
bed. No. And then the worst thing was, at 36 weeks, I then had went to the hospital. I was like, I've done it, like I've grown my baby, this is brilliant. They took the stitch out and they said, within 48 hours you're going to labour. A week later, I still hadn't gone into labour. Mentally, I was like, I'm done. Why the hell have I just been told to sit here or lie here? And then, to cut a very long story short, they induced me, I didn't dilate, and I was in a huge amount of pain. And the midwife said to me, you need to man up. This is just like Braxton Hicks, and you're only in early stages. And I literally was in agony. But basically, it was a junior doctor that took my stitch out, and he basically didn't take my stitch out. So I'd gone into labour, and they ruptured my uterus and completely ruined my cervix. So I can't have any more children. Oh. And Olivia was delivered by emergency C-section. Even like now, she had to be resuscitated, and then I had to have 4. I've had to have 4 operations since then for it. So the first thing my husband was given when I walked out of theatre was a complaints letter, not his own daughter. So
that he could complain about the fact that you hadn't been treated in a proper clinical way.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it was a.
And does that change your outlook on life generally? That trauma, that kind of that anxiety, I suppose, and that uncertainty. Has that changed? I mean, obviously, what I'm trying to do here is forge a link between that and where you are now. Yeah. Is there one?
You can't have a bad day at the moment, can you? Really, after that?
No. I mean, I look at Olivia now, and she's my greatest achievement. So I think for me, I was really lucky that I did fall pregnant. I've got a lot of friends that have been, not so lucky as me. So for me, whilst it was not the best journey and it was a real challenge, I think mentally it showed me that you can be resilient.
But is it more than that? Is it? And I'm fascinated by entrepreneurs' journeys and the fact that I think that hardship and trauma can actually drive someone to be very successful. So you, without any prompting, have just told us your story. I wonder if that's more relevant to your decision to go for it with Atomic than you realise, on the basis, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is it this? You went through what you went through with Olivia and you came out the other side, thank God. You now think, well, nothing can be as bad as that. So I don't fear failure when it comes to starting a business, which most people do, by the way. So the majority of people that don't start businesses,
Fear of failure.
Yeah, they don't not start businesses because they haven't got an idea or because they don't think they can do it. It's fear of failure. Yeah, absolutely. Your failure threshold now, because of what you had to do to protect, she's sitting here, by the way, to protect Olivia with headphones on, has that inspired you to take that step in terms of being a self-employed business owner, which otherwise you might not have taken?
Actually, probably not, no. And I'll tell you why. I think actually I probably would have become an entrepreneur quicker if I hadn't had Olivia.
So you would have done it
because
anyway.
I was too fearful that if I went on my own and I wasn't successful, we wouldn't have our mortgage and we wouldn't be able to support Olivia. So I think I'd always wanted to do something, but I wanted to own my craft and learn it more. I think as women, we sometimes overthink things and want to try and be perfection before we launch something. Whereas I think a lot of the time men go, do you know what, I'm just going to give it a go. If I fail, it doesn't matter. Whereas I think for me, actually, I was more frightened of failing and then not being, the role model that I wanted to be for Olivia, that actually it probably stopped me from starting sooner.
Well,
How was work at that time? Were they supportive of everything that you were going through?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say a bad word about any employer that I've worked for. I think back then, so Olivia's she's 9.5 now. Obviously, we didn't have that kind of hybrid working lifestyle. So, going to central office was an 1.5-hour commute for me every day. And I couldn't go into the office 5 days a week. They're very different culture now, but 9.5 years ago, there wasn't home working available. That just wasn't an option. And so then I got approached, then someone had left Belvoir and went into a senior role at LSL and then said, do you want to come and do acquisitions? It's a home-based role.
Acquisition starting point.
And that's where it started 9.5 years ago. Started off as a project coordinator, then project manager, and then went into integrations at LSL doing acquisitions for all across their brands, Your Move, Reed's Range.
So what made you make the step into your own business? What was there a light bulb moment? Was there a catalyst? You've been thinking about it for years. Why did Lucy Noonan start Atomic?
So I think I'd been planning about it and preparing for it for a long time. I was very much on the relationship side of being the conduit between the buyer and the seller. I think looking back, I was very much probably becoming quite difficult to work with because I'd done so many acquisitions at LSL, and then I went to Lomond and was the acquisition director, and we did like 19 acquisitions in 10 months. It was like vroom, vroom, vroom. And there were multi-million.
60 now.
Yes.
Yeah, so there was multi-million pound acquisitions that we were involved with, and I kind of really understood and knew my craft. And then obviously as you grow that quickly, then there's more people that need to then support that. But then that was reducing the time frames that we were able to complete. There was more kind of red tape getting involved. And then I was becoming really frustrated going, actually, we're buying people. And that is in acquisitions. I'm not a broker selling pens and stationery shops. I'm basically selling landlords, vendors, staff. And it is a people business. And sometimes I was getting frustrated that people were looking at it as a commodity and just on an Excel spreadsheet or as a P&L. And very much so, yes, we have to do that. But at the same time...
It's another deal.
Deal,
you can
sorry.
hear that, it's another deal. On Lucy's phone in the background.
Note cell, should have put it on Do Not Disturb. No.
It's a modern world.
Yeah, so I handed in my notice twice to Lomond. And both times got kind of... well, we can make you this, give you more money, do this and do that. And then that again made me think, oh God, this is a massive risk. And, me and my husband come from very kind of humble backgrounds. We've not, we've grafted to get to where we are. And I think there was one moment in Scotland that I had, which probably wasn't my finest hour, and I just had enough. And I was like, I've got to do this for myself now.
Sorry, can we go there? What do you mean?
No.
Had a tantrum? Kicked off?
I did kick off quite badly, yeah.
Justifiably?
Yeah. I think so, but the way in which I handled myself was definitely not my finest hour.
Did you burn a bridge?
No, well, I'm still you've got a really good relationship with Lomond. They're buying businesses through me. Will Lindley Will Lindley is a great, and there's a lot of people in the business like, Jason Watkin and Martin Elliott, and Ed. They're brilliant. There's some great people in that business. But yeah, I think I'd wanted to go for so long, and then the things that were frustrating me were still frustrating me, and I think I reacted in an unprofessional way.
I was just going to...
We're 22 minutes.
I know.
Sorry, 30 minutes, and I've got my $6 million question I've got to ask.
Well, I was going to lead you into that question. So one of the other hats you wear is women in estate agencies, so a big passion of yours. So just talk about what's going on there at the moment, what's happening this year. I think Russell's got a question around some of the things that have happened to you before.
Yeah, so I'm incredibly passionate about women in estate agency. I think for me, looking back when I was at Countrywide, I would have never have even dreamt that I could get to kind of the level and seniority that I was at Belvoir and Lomond. It just was never really seen as an opportunity. I thought my biggest was going to be like an area manager. Not that that's not a great role. But, women in estate agency, I don't think it's a shame that it is there. And I'd like to think in years to come that it's not there. But we're really making inroads. And there's some incredible stuff that we're doing. We're looking at doing some leadership training. Our conference now is going to go into the third year. We're finalising, and I think what we're trying to is to inspire the next generation of women in estate agency and support women to, go for it, because there's people on the committee and in the group. It's a safe place, the Facebook group. So every day there's questions, even just things like, I've got a difficult landlord here, how do I manage this? Or, I've had my boss has said this to me, how do I approach? So there's a huge raft of things. And Verona, who's our chair, is and the CEO of Yopa. There's some brilliant, inspiring leaders that we've got.
So that organisation set up to support, advance, promote, protect almost women in estate agency. But you had an experience a few years ago now that is what I will very kindly say is the antithesis of everything that women in estate agency stands for.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to talk to us about, and by the way, the reason that we're having this conversation was because we were all out one night, a load of us, the kind of property great and good, drinking and
I don't know if we're great and good, Russell.
Not good at singing.
The people of the industry.
Well, I guess we weren't good at 2:00 in the morning in a karaoke bar when I was singing to you. Do you remember that? Yes. I'd had a couple of glasses of wine, I think, as I think you had, Lucy, and we ended up in a karaoke bar with Verona Frankish, Simon Wales, Susanna Maverty and others. And I do remember singing to you, which I'm afraid I think actually somebody, Susanna, has on video. Let's hope that never, ever sees the light of day. Anyway, to the serious point, you had an experience that actually may have driven you, again, talking about drivers and catalysts and so on, certainly also to be a passionate member of the Women in Estate Agency group, that was distasteful and inappropriate to say the least. What happened?
So it's not just one.
And let's not name them. I'm sure you're not going to. No. And this is no reflection on the company, whoever that company was. But there was an individual that approached you one night when you were out for a drink, funnily enough. And what did they say to you?
You're just tits and teeth.
And that you'd got the job because
I had tits and teeth.
Wow. They looked you in the eye and said that.
Yep.
Wow. So how did you react? I know you're out of work, but did you laugh it off, or did you chastise it as that comment needed to be chastised?
No, and it's something that I am passionate about talking about now. I think at the time I brushed it off and was just kind of like, that's what people say. But actually, this is why women in estate agency here, because that's not okay. And it actually affected me a lot more than I thought. I think I became more maverick, like you've said. I think that's sometimes where my personality has come from.
So you rebelled against
because I think I then was overcompensating, thinking, well, no, I'm not just this. I am a professional individual. Yes, I have a big personality, but that doesn't mean that I'm not good at my craft and I'm not professional.
I'm here on merit.
Thumbs up and my dances and things. Sometimes people, but I am a professional individual, but I can have a personality as well. And it affected me to the point where it made me dress differently. So
it had an immediate effect and a lasting effect.
Yeah. No, I don't think so much now. But it did for a long time. I was very conscious of how I dressed, how I was perceived. Didn't want people to, think of me like that.
That's not what you ought to be known for.
No.
Did you temper or dilute your personality?
Oh, well, I was actually asked as well by a different male that if you want to be successful, particularly in acquisitions, you need to moderate your personality.
What? So be a different person to get on.
Yeah. Because if you're in the corporate world, you can't be going in there and doing all of. And I think that was another big reason why I wanted to launch Atomic, because I actually thought, no,
89
I can't.
acquisitions. Say they're wrong.
You can be yourself, you know. And I think sometimes the traditional corporate estate agent, white collar males, they think that you have to be like that to be successful. And I'd hoped to be able to demonstrate now that that's absolutely wrong. You can be yourself.
Well, the irony is when it comes to such things, as we talked about a lot on this series of podcasts, when you think about, let's say, the rise of self-employed estate agency, the one big thing that comes up as the central plank to that is personal brand. It is about not just visibility, but personality, character, and so on. So actually, my argument would be that whatever sector or subsector within our industry you're in, personality is incredibly important, because I think it not only maybe highlights who you are and so on, but it also shows a certain authenticity.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest, Russell. Not everyone likes you, and not everyone likes me. And do you know
never
what?
Heard that. Are you serious?
And again,
She was referring to me. She was referring to me, Russell.
I wasn't. No, but I think as well, I think that's come with maturity was as well. I always had this thing, and I think that's come from my family as well, is to be liked. I've always had this thing that everybody's got to like me, and I'd panic if someone didn't like me, and oh my God, why don't they like me? And I'd overthink it, and I'd over panic. I think now I've turned 40, and over the last few years, particularly now with Olivia, is I just think, do you know what? If you don't like me, that's absolutely fine, because probably 9 times out of 10, I don't like you either. But I can still be professional and work with you, but you don't have to like everybody to get on in business. I think that's another lesson that I, through coaching, that has been something that is been difficult for me to learn, but actually it's important, because you're not going to like everybody in this world, but it still doesn't mean you don't have to work with them.
And
you can work with them.
Going back to this experience that we've just characterised, do you think again that kind of being the recipient of that misogynistic behaviour has driven you? Yeah,
100%. Yeah. We've got a sign on some pictures in our wall, and I've got one that's called Trot on. And so now as a business, as Atomic, we had an individual, a buyer only last week, was absolutely disgustingly rude down the phone to one of my, to one of the girls in my team. I just picked up the phone. I said, you're never going to do business with us. Well, I'm a really good buyer. I said, I don't care. You never speak to anybody like that in my team. Trot on. And I put the phone down. That's it. It's brilliant. I don't have to justify, because no one can sack me. But I was like, no, I'm not having people speaking or acting the way in which this bullish language and this this mentality of, well, I've got that I can do this because I'm this big person. Well, if you're not going to deal with people in a professional way, I'm not going to deal with you either. And I've now luckily I've got that choice to be able to do that.
God, I wish we'd known all this before we started this podcast. I would have tempered my behaviour.
The girl in my office, she's only just been with me for 4 months, and she was really shocked that I'd actually done that. And she was actually quite emotional that I'd actually stuck up for her. And I was just like, there's no way, no one's ever going to speak to you like that if you're going to work with me. That's just absolutely not going to happen.
Brilliant. You're in control of your destiny. You're dealing with who you want to deal with as well.
And I rang the seller, the client, and I said, look, this situation has happened. If you want to deal with them, that's absolutely fine, but I'm out. And I have got that very much. And I think that's why also the sellers that we work with, our clients, they've really got my back. They've got my interest. It's not just about getting the best value, because probably that buyer is going to be really difficult through the transaction, isn't going to be commercial, isn't going to, he's going to try and chip and price chip at the last minute. And,
you can see it coming, can't you?
Yeah, exactly. So it's, for me, I think, definitely comments like that. And also having people that have been quite negative about me launching, they're only going to do 300 grand deals. That has driven me.
Well, sorry, was that from a competitor? Because you and I have spoken about this.
Yeah.
That you've had some kind of, and I know we're running over here, but this I think
this is a good point. We keep going.
Yeah. So you've had, let's just say, I'll say this so that you're not saying it. Competitors in your specific space, as in acquisitions, that seem to have the view and the attitude that they have a God-given right to be the only participant in that space. How's that manifested itself in terms of what you've heard from a disparaging point of view, those people, those businesses kind of acting towards you as a new startup in their space?
I think competition is healthy. There's estate agents launching all the time. There hasn't been a huge amount of competition in my space. Yes, we've had quite a lot of challenges, I'd say, with some of our competition. But I've just decided.
Have they tried to badmouth you, Lucy?
Oh, yeah, quite a bad time, yeah. But I think actually, in a way,
That's a compliment, by the way.
Yeah,
if they're doing that,
yeah,
that's a positive
and
thing.
I think
because otherwise they're not worried about you.
Yeah, and that's it. The girls in my team, they get quite frustrated by it, and constantly checking us on what we're doing and contacting sellers. But I think we've been going just over 2.5 years. If we're threatening our competition at that level already, then I just think we're doing something different. I'm not copying anybody. I'm doing my own thing. I'm staying in my own lane, and I'm just not letting it affect me, because I'm obviously ruffling feathers. And I'm not going to change what I'm doing.
And you're selling businesses.
And I'm selling businesses, yeah. So, but there is room for us all. We are the only broker that also offers project management. There isn't anybody else that does what we do as well. So helping to support buyers to acquire agents is something completely unique. And it's something that I'm really passionate about as well, because I want to support independent agents to grow, because I'd like to have a business in 15 years, because those businesses now that are growing, if I deliver a great customer service to them, they're going to become sellers.
Definitely.
The bold, the inspiring, the impressive Lucy Noonan.
Very good. Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's the end of episode 14. Watch this space for episode 14 and a half, because we have a very interesting take and a turn of the tables on our next podcast. You've heard about Olivia Noonan through this conversation today, so watch out for episode 14 and a half.
Indeed. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Great. Well,